I'm actually a fiber artist myself. I feel like it's underrepresented in the Miami Valley area. And because I enjoy it so much, and I think other people would, if they just had an opportunity to see it, I think we're doing like a community service. This is our second year for this show. I came to the facility 2 years ago and we put on a show with a bunch of painters. And I thought, you know, in the back of my mind, I would love this space to have fiber art. And this year we have 10 different fiber artists, and they're all different media. Many of them are wall pieces, but we also have some three-dimensional pieces. Fiber also means paper, so this year we also have paper work, and we also have felting. We have one gentleman who is out in the country. He takes his own sheep, shears the sheep, dyes their wool, and makes art out of it. The paper artist paints paper bags and makes three-dimensional sculptures. And we have another lady who does found objects and mixed media and does journaling with fabric. Myself, I have 4 art quilts in the show, and one which is a painted lady that I cut out of paper, painted paper that I cut out collage style. I added some fiber, some fabric, and then I sewed in between, like think of like a jigsaw puzzle. I sewed in between where all the edges met, and that's my Margot. So she's in the case. We have representation from Beaver Creek, Centerville, Springboro. I'm not sure where Boyd lives, but you know, he's out in the country, maybe Clayton area. And so we're all over the Miami Valley. And I'm just proud that the city of Springboro has let us put this show on for a second year. The majority of the work here is done with fabric. Fabric that's been cut and fused, and think about like an applique onto another backing of fabric. But then they've been embellished. They have beads sewn on them. They have, some of them are probably hand dyed, the fabric itself. And so there's quite a bit of different work that goes into each piece. And I think you'll see the representation of people, animals, nature is very popular with artists. So you'll see a wide variety of things. Myself, I'm a former elementary art teacher. I taught elementary for 35 years, and I also worked my way all the way up to teaching at Wright State University, and I taught a lot of teachers and adults. Turns out, who could figure out I was good teaching other teachers, and because I tried to bring my enthusiasm to that group, and we did fiber projects, we did textiles. I taught at the Dayton Art Institute for a while. So, you know, just throw it up in the air, and that's where I taught pretty much. Well, I think you probably need to go online and look to see what appeals to you, because it could be felting, it could be working with art quilts. It could be collage work or mixed media work. Look and see what appeals to you, then find another fiber artist that could kind of guide you. I actually have one of my friends started out as kind of my student, and we're sharing our spaces right next to each other. And she comes to my house 4 hours in an afternoon, and I, you know, kind of go through the steps. So you need to find another person, because basically I think you can learn how to paint and carry a paintbrush, but I think there's something to fabric that you almost need to sit down with one-on-one in person. My work has kind of migrated. I have some pieces that are actually in a new medical center that is in the Dayton area called 5 Rivers. And I also have some pieces that are in, you know, basically private collections. And then the rest of it is just at my house. Well, my big thing is always the wow factor, you know, for them to come in and go, oh my gosh, look at what they did, look at what they created, because the techniques and the methods that people are using, I think that they will be impressed. And you know, we have people that have studied with other people, you know, they've had their own schooling. And so, you know, they take a little bit from this artist, another thing from a class, and I think that it shows in their work. I am accepting new artists if they are interested in this fiber show, maybe for next year. We will, I do ask to see a sample of 5 pieces of their work to select to see that I feel like it goes with everybody else's work. And, you know, I think that, you know, the sky is the limit. We could keep doing this year after year, but we'll find out if Marine Health allows me to come back.
I have these 3 pieces are what I call straight stitch painting. It's a technique that I have developed over the years. It's folded fabric strips, kind of embroidered in rug mesh. Is basically what it is. So it's like working on a grid, and I have found that I can do a lot of fun things with it. I'm really interested in quilt motifs, so I've done a lot of work with traditional quilt motifs. I love landscapes. This one is just a made-up landscape. It's no place in particular. And I kind of went through a phase where I did different shapes. So my husband is a woodworker, so he helps me cut things out and get them mounted very well. My inspiration was we bought some tires, and what came with the tires were these large pieces of round cardboard. And I thought they would make a terrific loom. So I just cut slashes in them, and so each section is like a little loom. This one is called Provence. I've never been to Provence, but I have seen pictures, and I just love the sunshine and the rocky terrain, sunflowers, and of course lavender. Well, I wanted to kind of represent Provence, and from the pictures I've seen, it's kind of a rocky terrain. There are some mountains, and so these are just little rocks that are representing the terrain. This is sort of a mountain. These are beads, which are representing the sunflowers. And then these are the lavender, the fields of lavender. And then this one is called Blue Moon. I don't remember exactly when. A few months ago, there was supposed to be a blue moon, which is an astronomical phenomenon. It didn't look blue to me, but I looked at photographs, and a lot of them were kind of blue and white and a little bit of orange. It's the same basic technique as this one. It's on cardboard. And this one I did some shibori dyed pieces in the middle. There's also what's called a Dorset button, which is an embroidered button. And then the phases of the moon are done in needlepoint. Right now I'm sort of teaching myself how to make paper, and then I'm using that paper to make torn paper collages. So the one I just finished, I repurposed a frame that was part of a bathroom vanity, and it's from the 1970s, and it looks like bamboo. So my picture is a grove of bamboo trees. People can see more of my work usually at the Kennedy Heights Art Center in Cincinnati. I'm a member of the Artists Collective down there, and we have a show once a year in November, December.
I mostly do things that uplift me and bring me joy. And in Ohio sometimes with the weather, the climate, I was thinking of a tropical paradise. So hence that piece came. I love birds. You'll notice a lot of times I put a bird in every piece. And so the tropical paradise, that's how that one was born. This is called Surrender. And this bird here is the Holy Spirit. It represents the Holy Spirit, and it's about surrendering during the pandemic times and how we don't have control of some things, and we just need to go within, find a safe place, and create our own joy. And then this one here is called Out on a Limb. And I did this one a few years ago, just about a bird and just being out on a limb and just what that symbolizes in life. I think fiber chose me. I really enjoy working with my hands. So whether it's beading, I also make jewelry, yarn, crocheting, fabric. I learned to sew from my grandparents. My grandfather was prolific in choosing colors. I think I get my sense of color from him. And then my grandmother also did a lot with her hands and the quilts. So they used to make the quilts, and then I would also sell them and work with them. So that's how I learned. I have a degree in business and in marketing. And I think my art background just came from as a child. When I grew up with my grandparents, and it skipped my mother. She doesn't like to do it, but she has an appreciation for quilts and for art. And I believe it's inherent. Sometimes things choose us. I love to show my work all over the country, and it's always a joy to show it in your own neighborhood and with your own peers, and especially with the variety of work here. All different types of textiles, whether it's paper, fabric, sculptures, all kinds of work. Some of my work is on a blog called Beyond the Edge Fiber Artists. It's a blog spot. And then I'm also a part of another group called Kumba Fiber Artists, and you can Google those too. I'm working on three-dimensional pieces. I do vases. So I take what's off the wall and create vases, and they're three-dimensional, and they sit on the shelf in different places for display. I enjoy all different types of textile and working with them, and whether it is beading on my fabrics, some of the ones you can see the little beading, I do those and that type of thing. And this is one of my vases that I have here, where I am now starting to do some of the three-dimensional work and the beading, intricate beading on there, and all of those. And those have been shown all over also, all over from California to Virginia, all over the country. They've been shown. Yes.
Well, I chose this piece very frankly because of the fact that my friend Carol, who also has pieces in here, likes the work I do with faces. I do different types of fiber art, and so this one was one of the very first face pieces I did. I was experimenting a lot, playing around with this. The fabric itself was at one time white, and so it has been painted as well by me, embroidered, and then the framing was pieced and put onto the piece. It's a beautiful piece with a very hard message. It's about sexual abuse. In very frankly, Boy Scouts, they would have night games, and the boys would all run around in the forest. Sometimes the scout leader was there too, but sometimes the scout leader wasn't so friendly. So I guess that's the best, kindest way to put that. And that happened to happen in a person in my family, so therefore it was a discussion of that. I had this piece in Washington, D.C. at the last time they had sacred threads, and this year I had a different piece, but anyway, okay. So, but it was a breakthrough piece for me because it did get to go to Washington, D.C., and I liked playing around with the paint and the fabric at the same time, and tons and tons and tons of stitching. I've been an artist all my life, I guess. As I wrote, it is in my DNA. I was finally figuring that out. My parents were both artists. And so I've kind of been, by the time I was 4 or 5, I had seen every major artwork in the Eastern Seaboard because they took me with them to see all the museums, etc. So it's just been part of my life, all of my life. The fiber part is because of the fact that when you have two parents, both of whom paint and draw incredibly when you're a kid, besides which, I talk better with fiber than I do with paint or drawing. I am working on 2 major projects, and I just finished 9 large pieces that they're much more abstract than this. Quilts are interesting because quilts can be art, obviously, that's what this is, but people think also of old-fashioned type quilts, which are made of scraps. So I kind of combine those two things, and I've used lots and lots of scraps to make very much more abstract landscape type pieces. And they're 90 inches wide, they're huge, but they were fun to make, and they're all done. And I got them all photographed, so we'll see. I also teach art quilting at Mount Healthy High School, and so during the year, my life is filled up with my kids. So I probably won't get to do as much for a few minutes because I have to take care of them. Well, I think it's very kind of you to have us come, invite us to this, and I think the more places that people can see fiber and realize that it is an art, it's part of the arts as well. It doesn't have to be a craft necessarily. One of the faculty shows that I went to when my dad had pieces, you know, because he was part of the faculty, the art faculty at the University of Illinois. One of the other professors was there, and he could kind of see me looking like this. And I said, well, but I do things with thread. And he said, your stylus is a needle. So there are paintbrushes as styluses, pencils, and a needle as a stylus. So that's wonderful that you would accept the stylus of a needle. I have some shows that have been online recently, and I have shown all the way from Washington, D.C. to California and up into Canada. So it depends upon where they are. It's www.artquiltsbymaude.com.
The work that I brought today is a little different than I normally do because I normally, when I needle felt, it's just flat, two-dimensional. There are some people that sculpture with their needle felting. I was always afraid to do that because if I poke my finger, I'm on blood thinners. So anyway, I'd go with the flat, but then I'd bring some relief into it, and that makes it 2.5 instead of 2 or 3. But anyway, the pieces that I have, like I say, are a little different. I look to repurpose a lot of things around the house or the barn or whatever, and I found the old board. It's a weathered barn board, been out for years, and it's hard as a rock. And so I was encouraged to have it to speak to me. I've never had things speak to me like that. But anyway, at first it was a flat river, but then it became a cliff, like a mountain cliff. And I love the old fungus off of the black locust trees. And so I saw firewood. I get those every once in a while. And I wanted to play around with those in combination with the wood. And somehow or another, it just all came together as little shelves of life coming off of the cliff. And then I needle felted all the vegetation around it and the water. And that was interesting to try to make wool look like water. But I had fun doing that one. The little lady in the center, she reminds me of a lot of grandmas, and so I just called her Grandmama. And she's just a portrait. She was the first portrait that I ever tried to do to see if I could do it. Part of her is a combination of a lot of other portraits. And I would never sell her because of that, but she was fun doing, and I just like her. She hangs well in the basement. My art studio is called the Furnace Institute because it's in the basement of the house where the furnace is, and that's where I have all of it. So to make it sound like an artist education, I call it the Furnace Institute. What else? The purple sheep was completely different. I usually try to duplicate things so they actually really look, a true representation of what I'm trying to do. The sheep obviously is not. I wish I had a flock of purple sheep. They would be worth a lot. But that one was also just a fun experiment. A little bit, what's the word? Well, not real, more cartoonish with the legs and things. And then that also went into this one, which I was trying to depict the 4 seasons of the sheep. Here's the winter and her wool is long, and then she's sheared in the spring, in the summer it's growing. By the fall it's getting most of its length back. These are old vintage sewing machine drawers. I had them on a wagon for a garage sale for a few bucks, and nobody, was interested in them. So I thought, well, we'll try to do that. There's a couple of tobacco lath in the back, holds them all together. And then this one over here was probably as much fun as any. It's just an old vintage enamel pan, and I just wanted to create a landscape, and my John Deere tractor and the sheep. So a lot of my art is the kid in me doing fantasy things of either going back or maybe some more playing in the second childhood. So I grew up on a farm in Xenia. My first title of shepherd was probably in junior high when I got to start taking care of my dad's flock. We've had sheep most all of our married life, and I'm a shepherd in the church where I attend. So I'm the only one there that has ever experienced raising sheep, but I encourage them to come out and see why we're called sheep. But was an ag teacher, VOAG, and so I've had farm background. They were baling hay last night, which will feed the sheep this winter. And so it's all been a part of my life for a long time. I'm going to try to cut out a lot of the other things in life and focus more on art. I've never ever considered myself an artist, but people like some of the things that I put together when I play, and I'd like to do a lot more of that. The last art class that I ever took, I think, was in the 7th grade, where we glued little tiles together and made ashtrays. So there's no professional training there, but I've always been told, and I know a lot of people learn with their fingers, they're tactile, and are visual, and that's just a part of who I am. And so I like fiber. I'm out all the time on the farm or anywhere, and I like to feel the different textures and things and the colors, and just put it all together and assemble another vision of what I'm seeing out there. So how I actually got into this many years ago, probably 15 or more now, we were at a wool festival and some lady was doing this. And I said, I think I could maybe do that. And so I bought some needles, and we had the wool. And so it's just been an adventure since then. I shear them, wash the wool, dye it, process it, and I've got a palette you wouldn't believe of colors. And I never care if I don't make the same color twice, because it doesn't matter. Most fiber dyers want to be able to recreate that exact same color. I don't care. Nature's full of blends. So, my son started me a Instagram account. If I disciplined myself better, I've got a few things on there. If you were up at Allwood Audubon Center, I've got a piece up there that's depicting one of their festivals. Trying to think of where else. Ronald McDonald House may or may not have one, but I did an auction for Ronald McDonald, and it had recognizable people in it and stuff. Most of the nice pieces that I've done have either been sold to one's a veterinarian in Germantown, but I give most of them away. They're works of love and appreciation for the person, and so some are in Arizona, some are in Tennessee, but Yeah, I don't have a body of work per se that's on display. I think the thing that really brought me back, I was amazed that I was asked to come, and so I said, well, if they have that much confidence in me, I'll do some more pieces. And it's the only time I really step out of my other clothes and pretend I'm an artist for a while. So yeah, I enjoy it.
Well, I'm a paper bag sculptor, and I do everything with paper bags. And then sometimes I dream about what I should do next. And so I started thinking I'm going to do dancers because my daughter Jacoby was a dancer. And that's what started me doing all the dancing shapes. Then I elongated them to make them have, more interest to me. And let's see what else. Some of them are Kroger's, some of them are Myers bags, and then I make them into like long tubes. Then I change the tubes and make them have the dance or the stand or the attitude. My father ended up, when he retired from Wright Pat, being a quilter, and his quilts went to the Smithsonian. They were history quilts. And my mother always sewed and could do draperies. And so I think sometimes when you're around people that do things, even if you don't have a teacher yet, you just think it's possible. And that's what, I thought. I said, maybe I could do this. And I would make up things. I was thinking about things that you could get a hold of that didn't cost very much. And when I was starting to teach, I thought, well, how many things could you make with a paper bag? And I started making puppets. And then I started thinking fish, things like that, with the paper bags. And then I was always a sewer, so I ended up being a costume maker with rags and things like that. And some of my rag costumes, I went to on tour with Rick James, and the group was called Slave, and that's a fiber thing. So I dressed them in fabulous rags for their tour. I retired a few years ago from Beaver Creek after 25 years. And then someone said, I had a big show last month of giant fish and orcas and all kinds of things down at the Dayton Public Library. And someone said, Delora, you should be back in teaching. And I thought, like to share that and do some of the things I used to do with the students. And so I went to see about it, and they hired me. So now I'm an unretired art teacher. I just finished a show down in Cincinnati at Paper Wings over the Rhine. But, I'm putting things in storage. I know that now. This was the place that I was going to have the next show. And then they'll be in storage, and so people, if they want to have a show with me, they should let me know. I'm teaching at Roosevelt Elementary, kindergarten to 6th grade. Well, I'll do paper bags. I won't do this particular type of thing, but I'll do things like dinosaurs and fish and things like that. We're getting ready to do their mascot. And so I have big boxes, and I'm getting ready to score them and roll them and make them into that. Maybe pirate ships, things like that with corrugation, and then sails and masts, things, that nature kind of. Kathy, she's just a wonderful artist. And so she said, Delora, are you coming back? And I said, for her, I would. Well, I'm just really happy to see this particular thing turn out and see it when it's hung up again in a different location and how it looks, and it looks really good here. And I'm glad you like it.